Okay, thank you. I think now it's working. Yeah, this is now the third talk about RAGs in a row. Nevertheless, I think I have a different perspective. So I'm a philosopher of science and have been working into the some technical details of these systems, and I'm going to present you my perspective on what's necessary for a discipline like philosophy, who cares very much about linguistic accuracy, semantic accuracy, and things like that. So a typical research question in philosophy would be, what is Aristotle's theory of matter in the physics? Or okay. Okay, yeah, great, thank you. So a typical research question would be, what is Aristotle's theory of matter in the physics? Does Einstein's idea of locality develop from his earlier to his later works? So from his works on relativity until his 1948 paper on Quantenmechanik und Wirklichkeit, things like that. And you can put that into an LLM like ChatGPT, and you get really decent answers, right? So you get differentiated answers which are okay on this level of questioning. But there are a number of problems, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And RAG systems are a setup which is suitable to solve these problems. So you've now seen this RAG setup more than you need to know. So you have a data source where you retrieve documents. In this case, so you have to place the appropriate corpus, like Aristotle's corpus or Einstein's corpus. Then these documents are retrieved typically with semantic search. Of course, you can do a hybrid search as well, or a classic search if you like to. And then you augment the prompts with the found relevant chunks of text that are relevant for the question that you posed, right? And this solves first the problem of access. So large language models, while they can talk in a learned and educated way about Einstein's works, they don't have access to the full text, right? So the full text have been probably in the training data, but when you ask ChatGPT about quoting maybe a certain chapter in a certain paper, then it says, well, I can't quote it, or it hallucinates. Then you can switch on the online search, and then it can quote it if there are no copyright restrictions, right? So I think with the works of Einstein, I got copyright restrictions, at least with the EPR paper, for example, right? It's the right is with a certain journal, and so ChatGPT can access it, but it may not reproduce it. So these are complicated matters. Yeah, so LLMs are not built, so the training mechanism is not built to learn texts. It's just the opposite, right? So the training mechanism is such that they should not just parrot texts, right? So they should learn generalizable statistical rules of text production, and there are explicit mechanisms which forbid or prevent these systems to learn texts by heart or verbatim. Yeah. So, but with philosophical research, we just need that. We just need the original text sources, and we need to be able to get deep into these texts and their very fine-grained formulations. Second problem, of course, is the problem of the limited context window. Actually, you have, like, ChatGPT-4o has 128,000 tokens of context. This sounds a lot, but of course, if you have a large corpus, then you soon run out of context. And finally, RAG systems are capable of solving the problem of attribution. So you want to have sources or citations for the claims that you get in the answer, right? I mean, you all know perplexity. You might want to have these little numbers for each central statement, which gives you the source of the statement. So the general idea is, as the previous talk emphasized well, to chat with philosophical corpora, but with much more detailed domain knowledge and verbatim text spaces. This is useful, of course, for didactics. It's really a good way to approach, let's say students approach Locke's essay, and they can start by chatting with it and asking, well, what's Locke's general idea, and then go deeper into it and say, well, what's his idea in epistemology, what's his theory of matter, and so on. And so you can, it's a good instructive way to get deeper into text. But also, and I would like to emphasize this, I think that RAG systems will be important for research. And the first obvious fact is you're going to need them to look up facts in handbooks, right? In the old times, you had books on the shelf, and you took them out, you found relevant pages, you read through them, and and hopefully found the fact that you needed to write a good footnote. And now you can do that with LLMs, but the information is not reliable. And I think for that we will need very good RAG systems. Also to explore unexamined corpora, right? If you have a corpus of texts maybe not published by an author, of course you first then have to digitize them, but then you can try to chat with them and get a deeper overview of what's contained. Then for finding passages for close reading that are relevant for your research question. And finally, in the end level, hopefully at some point, will be to find detailed answers to at least parts of your research question. I think that might be possible. We will have to see, but that this is to paint a picture of where we might want to go, also in philosophy. So what I did is to code an example RAG with the Stanford Encyclopedia. So well-known handbook, online handbook. Scrape the content into Markdown. And my first aim was to create just a useful tool for the community. And when I was coding and trying out the system, I found that just setting up the system as in a textbook with a retrieval part and a generating part doesn't give you very good answers. In fact, the answers were rather bad. So they were worse than typing them into GPT alone, like the just ChatGPT. And then you start trying to improve the results, and you start tweaking. You start tweaking with the models. You start tweaking with the hyperparameters. And finally, you try to make the algorithms more complex in order to get better results, like re-ranking. I will show you a slide about this in a minute. And the method in doing this is more or less trial and error. Yeah, you have a theoretical understanding of what's going on, but in the end, you just have to try, do my results get better? And in order to evaluate this, you really need good standards of evaluation. And in the case of philosophy, you get free unstructured text as answer. Yeah, you don't ask for atomic facts, which are maybe interesting history. So what was Wittgenstein's last place of living? Then you just get a name of a city, right? But you have rather complex propositions. And in the end, you need to evaluate do these propositions state the right facts? And that's not so easy. Yeah, here's just an overview of how it looks. This is the front end on the left-hand side, and this is just an impression of the code. It's a few thousand lines of code, but not too long. And I'm going to show you some details of the front end on the next slide. Okay, so this is just an impression. We have some hyperparameters like the prompt length, text to retrieve, of course, the field where to place your question. And then I have a comparative setup for the answers. On the left-hand side, the benchmark, answer with ChatGPT or whatever model you choose alone. On the right side, the answer with the RAG system. And this allows you to better compare it. And yeah, I don't go into the details here of the question. Don't have the time for that. And the final part of the output is the list of found texts. Yeah, right. So you see then you see the article names, you see the section headings that it found, and you see which texts were included in the prompt and which were cut off due to prompt limitations. So now, don't see it here. Okay, chunk size. This is now one example for a hyperparameter that I optimized or tried to optimize. And a priori, you have three options. You can use a fixed number of words, like computer scientists like to do. It's just a clean criterion, right? You take 500 tokens or 500 words and then cut off, no matter whether there are headings in between or other sectioning, right? And you can take paragraphs or you can take sections, section on a lower level, section on a higher level. And it did turn out, to my surprise, that the best result you get when you take the main sections as documents to retrieve. And this is surprising because the cutoff of the embedding model was a bit more than 500 words, and the sections were in average 3,000 words long. I think this is an effect of the fact that the handbook is highly systematized work, and that the first 500 words of a section already give you the main ideas of the section. I think this would not work in more heterogeneous text, which are not so well sectioned as this source, right? Yeah. I will try an embedding model with a longer context window. So the lesson here is effective chunking highly depends on the specifics of the corpus and the kind of questions. I will not, unfortunately, have the time to go into the details of re-ranking, but let me come to the conclusions. The advantages of RAGs are that they can integrate verbatim corpora as well as domain and special knowledge. This reduces dramatically hallucinations. They can cite relevant documents for the answer. So the RAG setup is in principle very well suited for assisting in scientific tasks, right? But caution with these 2 points. First, RAG systems essentially need tweaking, as I've tried to give you an impression. The evaluation of the results is crucial. So one does need a representative set of questions and expected answers. So you need domain experts to do this. You can't do a RAG setup and say this is the best RAG setup for all domains that you can imagine. Yeah, I think the setup is specific for the domains and for the kind of corpus you have, for the kind of questions you have. So open challenges, if no relevant documents are found, the quality of the answer decreases. So you need to adjust the prompt. And a funny fact in the end, RAGs often provide worse results concerning overview questions, like what are the central arguments against scientific realism? And I think the reason is, last thing, the reason is that RAGs focus on the local information they find, and by the prompt that you give into the RAG tries to answer the question based on the local information. But in an overview question, you want to make a large perspective. And then the local facts, they kind of distract from the large perspective. That's a funny effect I found. So yeah, we need more flexible systems that discern between certain kinds of questions. And then we go into the direction of agentic RAG systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's this word again, agentic. Okay, so we have 10 minutes. There's Fenna over there. Oh, we don't even have 10 minutes. We have 9 and 2.
Thanks. That's a very exciting program. Okay. Hi. Hi. Hello. I thought this was very cool and very interesting. One thing with philosophers is that it's very hard to get philosophers to agree on things. And what the Stanford Encyclopedia does very nicely is give like very broad overviews of where the fracture points of debates lie. And in giving these sort of answers and summaries, of course, you're trying to condense it down into something smaller. So my question is how you were wanting it to deal with the fact that everything is contentious, that there isn't like a simple answer to most things that some philosopher wouldn't sensibly disagree with.
Yeah. I mean, I would like unless the questioner doesn't deny this explicitly in his question or her question, I would like to give the answers an impression of the various stances you can have on the question. But of course, you can prompt it in this or that way. Does that answer your question? Yeah. We can talk later.
Okay, sorry, no, sorry. We have questions in the chat, and I will give them a bit of, how do you say, because they were muted for the whole session before. So there are questions about what are sound evaluation criteria? We've worked with a RAG framework in the Spiegel archive, but we had challenges with establishing a gold standard or silver standard for evaluation. Or there's questions about how do you know there are rarer hallucinations? What is a hallucination anyway? And there's a question, how did you do the evaluation for your RAG? What is the local versus overview facts? How did you understand and evaluate this?
Okay, how much time do I have left? Okay,
so half. No, I'm just saying half.
Let's focus on the evaluation thing because this is important. Basically, so first of all, I did the evaluation myself. One can think about doing an expert evaluation with colleagues, then like getting them access and voting on certain answers. But for this prototype, I did it myself. And how did I do it? I did it like I do mark homeworks for students. I have a list of criteria, like 15 criteria, or maybe 10 that concern the content, and like informativeness, depth of information, completeness of the answer, how does the answer respect different stances on a given question, and so on. And then I rate it and get a final score. I think this is probably the most accepted way to do it in philosophy. Of course, one can think of other ways, but I think this has worked out very well in several hundred years of teaching philosophy at universities and trying to get some objectivity into marking student work.
Okay, there were more questions. I see you. Christine, was it your name? No. Charlotte, something like that.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question regarding what you just said. I think it's great that you have like a guideline and to check how good the result is. Did you also give this guideline to the large language model? So say, these are my like perspectives. I want to have like, I don't know, what you just said. on one side, and on the other side, did you think about LLM as a judge? So ask another LLM to rate upon these questions you have in mind already.
Concerning your first question, I did to some extent. I didn't fully give the LLM the criteria of judgment. I more like kind of pushed it in the right direction with some adjectives that describe the desired answer. But it would be that would be an interesting trial to give them the full criteria. I take that home. And the second, what was your second question about?
Using LLM as a judge.
Yeah, I thought about this, but in these first stage, so I'm a bit skeptical about it. I like the idea of doing it automatically. I would love to see that working, but in this first stage, I first want to get an impression on how this works, and I wanted to see the results myself. So this would be a next step, to take the manually graded texts and then try the evaluation by LLMs and see how good it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the final one was over there.
Yeah, thank you for this talk. I want to tease out a bit more what you announced in the beginning. You said you had this special perspective, and here on the slide you say it requires domain expertise, and I couldn't agree more. I think not only in the evaluation, but also in the setup, like choosing the right height parameters, and you talked about this. But as a concrete example, you only have like the paragraph as the ideal chunking size. So from your perspective, what were the most, like, that being a rec in the domain of philosophy, what is the difference from the setup you ended up choosing from the same rec for biology? So where did the domain really influence the design most?
Yeah. Well, I think the chunking, that's why I chose it as an example, I think is such a central parameter that's really philosophical, because these philosophical facts, they are so they are kind of long spread, right? So they're not so dense, and you can put them in one paragraph, but normally you have arguments that stretch over several pages, and at least to explain them, right? I mean, you can put the premises and the conclusion in one paragraph, but then philosophers tend to explain their premises and why they hold to them. And if you just find paragraphs, then you kind of cut this semantic coherent building into artificial pieces, and that you can see by the answers that they really get worse. Is there anything specific philosophical? Yeah, I mean, in the judging criteria and in the type of questions I tested, philosophers ask for things that others wouldn't dive too deep into. For example, arguments, right? Philosophers are really obsessed by arguments, and so a RAG system that could not answer questions about maybe the central arguments for mental causation wouldn't be of use for philosophers. Yeah.